Hi to everyone. Today we are going to discuss about first chapter in our political science test. What is democracy? Why democracy? After the Second World War, we saw the establishment of democratic governments everywhere in the world. Most of the countries, most of the imperialist countries, or most of the European powerful nations, they began to decline after the Second World War. In the place of these European powers, United States and Russia emerged as powerful nations. These powerful nations after Second World War granted or supported the struggling people all over the world, or the colonial people, they were struggling for their independence. Our country also got independence after Second World War, and we established a democratic government in our country. We are trying to explain what is democracy, what is the meaning of democracy. In order to understand the meaning of democracy, we have to define the term democracy. There are different definitions. Simple definitions are there, and also some of the great personalities defined what is democracy. The most important and popular definition given by the famous American President Abraham Lincoln, how he defined democracy. He defined democracy is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Some of the simple definitions in our textbook, there is a definition what is mentioned. Democracy is a form of government in which rulers are elected. Some other definitions, it is mentioned, democracy is a form of government in which people have a share. Another definition, it is mentioned in such a way, democracy is a government in which rulers are elected, and these rulers are exercising their power, or they are governing the country directly or indirectly. These are the famous definitions, Abraham Lincoln's definition and other simple definitions given by various politicians. One thing is clear, in a democracy, who is supreme? In a democracy, we know that, or in our country, who is supreme? In our country, the people are supreme. People are taking decisions. In our government, in our country, the government which formed by the elected leaders, that elected leaders form the government, there initially the decision taken by the common people by exercising their right, the right to vote. So, exercising their right, that is very important. In our country, elections are once in 5 years. These elections, people are expressing their will, that they are getting the chance to express that will because democracy is existing in our country. The form of government which is in our country is democracy. Because of that, people are getting chance to select our leaders, and the basic principle of democracy is leaders are elected. So, in the case of India, leaders are elected, so we can say India is a democratic country, and that leaders are elected not for permanently, they are elected for a tenure already fixed in the constitution. In it mentioned that 5-year term, the tenure of a government is 5 years. That is mentioned in our constitution, and once elected, the leader or that government will remain in power for a period of 5 years. After that, there will be again general election. Because of that, we can say what is important in democracy is election or selection of our leaders. That is in our country. So, India is a democratic country. Next, we are going to discuss about what are the features of democracy. What are the conditions required to say a government is democratic government? The first point already we mentioned, in a democracy, the final decision-making power must rest with those who are elected by the people. Our leaders are taking, today there is incidents which happened in the Indo-China border. We've heard about that incidents. Everyone is looking forward to whom? Looking forward to our Prime Minister. What is his opinion? What he is going to say about that? Because of that, in a democracy, people are looking upon our elected leaders. We handed over the entire power to our elected leaders. Prime Minister convened a meeting of the senior cabinet ministers and discussed that issue and taking decision on the basis of that discussion. So Prime Minister and other ministers, they are the elected representatives of the people. They are taking decision about those matters. That is the important point in a democratic system. In a democratic system, important decisions are taken by the elected leaders. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other his cabinet colleagues are discussing about Indo-China problems and they are taking decisions because we handed over all those powers to our elected leaders because on the basis of indirect form of democracy. And in a democracy, there are two types of democracy. Our leaders, our Prime Minister and all other ministers are taking decisions because we selected them or we handed over those powers to the elected leaders. This type of democracy is mentioned indirect form of democracy. We are not actually actively or directly participating in this democratic or decision-making process. These decisions are taken by our elected leaders. That type of democracy is called indirect form of democracy. The best example of indirect form of democracy is our own system. Indian democracy is the best example of indirect form of democracy. The elected leaders are taking decision on behalf of the entire people or citizens. Then which is the other type? The second type is direct form. The entire people are taking part in the decision-making process. But it is not practical in the case of our country. There are the two reasons for that. The first one is the population, vast population. This much population, these people to assemble in a particular place and discuss and take decision. It is not practical. Second, the vastness of the country, the geographical vastness of the country. Because of these two reasons, direct democracy is not practical. So, we are following, or most of the countries in the world, they are following indirect form of democracy. Indirect form of democracy means leaders are elected and these elected leaders are taking decision. And the direct democracy, it is not practical because of vastness of the territory. And the second reason is the population is very high. Because of these two reasons, direct democracy is not practical. So again, I am going to our first point. The first point is in a democracy, final decision is taken by the elected leaders, our elected leaders. They are taking decision on behalf of the people. Then the second feature of democracy, what is the second feature? In a free and fair election is required. Then only it is democracy. We know that free and fair election in our country, always the election, there is a constitutional agency is there to conduct free and fair election in our country. What is the name of that free and fair that committee? The Election Commission. So in our country, there is an election commission to conduct free and fair election in our country. That election commissioners are appointed by the president. President appoints the election commissioners. Their responsibility is to conduct free and fair election in our country. If that free and fair election is there, then only we can say that government or that system is democracy. There are so many problems to conduct free and fair election, but the election commission strictly monitoring all this and conducting a free and fair election in our country. That free and fair election is very much essential to say a government is democratically elected government. our government, our election commission is doing those responsibilities without any failure. Because of that, we have a democratically elected government in our country. The next feature of democracy is one person, one vote, same value, one value. That is the most important principle. What is that? Political equality. In our country, every citizen, that is those who reach the age of 18 and above, are eligible to vote. That is the universal, we adopted the policy of universal adult franchise. Everyone reached the age of 18 and above are eligible. In other countries, sometimes the age may be different, but the basic criteria is age. No other factor. So one person, one vote, same value. So whether he is a rich person or poor person, he is an upper class or he belongs to upper class or lower class, he is a men or women, all those, there is no such difference. All are treated equally. One person, one vote, same value. That is the basic principle of political equality. All are equal politically by granting right to vote to all on the basis of age that we already mentioned, universal adult franchise. This is the third criteria or third point mentioned about what are the features of democracy. The firstly we mentioned that is decision, those who are elected leaders are taking decision. Second is free and fair election. Third is one person, one vote, one value, same value. This is the third point. The fourth point is rule of law and equal rights to all, or respect to the rights of the people. What is rule of law? That we studied in earlier classes. What is rule of law? Rule of law means all are equal before law. There is no difference or discrimination between people in the name of religion, in the name of caste, color, sex. No such religion. All are treated equally according to the law of the country. And second part is mentioned respect to the rights of the people. We know that in our constitution there are certain rights which are mentioned, that we call it is fundamental rights. The fundamental rights that granted to all citizens, that rights everybody can enjoy. In case any violation, we can approach to the court for getting it. So these fundamental rights are granted to everyone. Everyone is free to enjoy all these rights, and it is our duty to respect the rights of others also. So we must respect others and their rights. We can enjoy all these rights, at the same time allow others also enjoy these rights. These are the main four features of democracy. Once again, I am reminding you what is the first feature. Leaders are elected. Second is there is a free and fair election. Third is every citizen must have one vote. Fourth point is the rule of law and respect for rights. These are the four major features of democracy. Those things are for which are the countries which are following those things, or the government which is formed on the basis of these four things, these 4 points, we can say that government is a democratic government. These are the essential features of democracy. In all these discussions, we mentioned 2 terms. One is democracy, second is government. The first term we defined what is democracy. Democracy is a form of government in which leaders are elected or decision makers are elected by the people. Second part is government. What is government? Government is an organ of the state. Once again, government is an organ of the state. And what are the functions performed by the government? And the duty of the government to do the day-to-day functions of the government. Government is an agent of the state to carry out its functions. So the government responsibility to do the duties of the state. There are different forms of government. We earlier discussed about democratic form of government. What are the conditions required to say a country or a government is democratic? Which are the other forms of government? There are different various types of government. Kingship is there, dictatorship is there, monarchy is there, oligarchy is there. All these are different forms of government. But we try to prove that democracy is the most effective or suitable form of government. Everybody wanted to say that our government is democratic form of government. Even dictators are also trying. In our textbook it is mentioned about Musharraf tried to prove his government is a democratic or he is an elected person. There are so many examples in the world. There are so many examples around us. Those examples prove that all governments are not democratic. In all these forms, what separates democracy from all other forms of government? The only thing, our rulers are elected by the people. In all other forms of government, sometimes it is hereditary, sometimes they occupied power by military coup or some other way. But in democracy, the leaders or the rulers are elected by the people and they are the representatives of the people. They are taking decisions. The next we are moving to the merits of democracy. After discussing about the features of democracy, we came to the conclusion that democracy is the most suitable form of government. Why it is suitable or most acceptable form of government? Because of its merits. Few merits points are mentioned. What are the merits of democracy? The first is a democratic government is a better government because it is a more accountable form of government. So there is democracy, there is accountability. What is accountability means? Accountability means they are accountable, they are responsible or answerable to the people. In our case, we know that the general election, after one general election, there is again general election within 5 years' time. That is, the tenure is fixed in democratic system. Once the government is formed, that government will continue in power for a period of 5 years in our country. In the case of United States American presidential election, the American presidents will remain in power for a period of or tenure of 4 years only. But in our case, once the government or the election is over, formation of government is over, that government generally will continue for a period of 5 years, and again after 5 years, again they have to approach the people. There the people will decide this government will continue or not. Because of that, it is mentioned the rulers or the government is accountable to the people. Our MLAs and MPs are accountable to the people. Otherwise, after 5 years, their period will be over. Some other person will be selected from that constituency and an MP and remain as an MP or MLA. So once elected, most of the time the political parties, MLAs or MPs, they wanted to continue in power. They wanted to again remain in power. The MLA wanted again to elect after next 5-year term. MP wanted some of the constituencies, MLAs are continuously winning from the same constituency. Why? Because they are accountable to the people, and whenever there is a requirement, there is a help from those leaders or elected leaders, they are always available to the people. Some of the MLAs, more than 50 years continuously selecting or electing from that constituency because they are maintaining that much attachment to the people. They are always worried about the problems of the people of his constituency, and they are always approachable to them. Because of that, those people are continuously winning. That is what required in democracy, but is that the accountability is there. They are always ready to look after the welfare of the people of that constituency or the welfare of the people. They wanted to continue in power. That is the aim of a political party. When we studied what is a political party, a political party is an organization. Those people having same opinion about various issues, and their aim is to capture political power. So capturing political power, that is last 2014 election, Narendra Modi won the election, or BJP won the election, and Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister of India. Before that it was Congress rule. And after 2019 election, again he won, retained power, because of people accepted, or people are happy with the way in which he administered India. The next time also the ruling party is always trying to remain there in power. For what is required, they are always vigilant. What are the requirements to satisfy the requirements and demands of the people? Totally we can say they are always thinking about how to sort out the problems of the people, what are the facilities required, and their welfare is the welfare of the people. That is the main point which they are keeping in mind, that will help them to continue in power. The second point is democracy improves the quality of decision making. That is, in our school, we know that school parliament is there. That's what do you mean by school parliament? Everyone is getting chance to express their views. But in the case of our country, such a parliament is not possible because of, earlier I mentioned, vastness of the country, the population. These two factors, these are the problem. Because of that, we adopted the method of indirect form of democracy. Our elected representatives are taking part in the decision making, or they are taking decision. How it is? In the case of our country, Indian Parliament is taking decision. Indian Parliament is taking decision, as you all know that how they are taking decision. There are 3 stages that we discussed earlier. 3 readings, first reading, second reading, third reading. This is the procedure for taking a decision in the Parliament or making a law. For that, firstly, the concerned minister or the concerned member will present a bill in the Parliament. What is a bill? The bill is a proposed law. That is, the initial stage of a law is called a bill. Bill is a proposed law, and the 3 stages to pass, then only it becomes a law. The first is that bill is introducing or introduction of bill in the Parliament. Second is discussion. Third is put that bill into vote. This is the 3 stages in the Parliament. First stage, second stage, it is mentioned first reading, second reading and third reading. First reading introduction, second reading discussion, third reading voting. After this completing this procedure, that bill sent it to the President, Indian President, for getting his assent or signature. Only after getting the signature of the Indian President, it becomes a law. This is the process of making a law. The first stage it is bill, but the final stage it becomes a law. After getting the signature of the Indian President, it becomes a law, and that law is applicable all over India. There the second, what is important in that point which I mentioned, quality of decision making. Where it is quality, the second reading the quality remains. The second reading is discussion. Who all are participating in the discussion? ruling party members, opposition party members, and all people, those who are connected with that. So that is a detailed discussion is carried out in both the houses of parliament, in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Then only it sent it to the president. After voting, it sent it to the president. So discussion is detailed discussion. Then in addition to not only inside the parliament, outside the parliament, all the medias, the electronic media and print media, and the public meetings, opposition parties are organizing public meetings to explain the demerits of that bill. Ruling party members, the ruling party organizations are trying to convince the people about the merits of that bill. So inside and outside, inside the legislature or inside the parliament and outside and all the electronic media, all those people are participating in discussion, and finally, what is the result? It is easy to understand what are the merits and demerits of the bill. The ruling party or the Prime Minister and other ministers can make any change or any change in it, that there is time to make changes. After all these things, that bill is passed or the new law is framing. So that is possible only in democracy, discussion and debate. In other forms of government, in kingship, dictatorship, monarchical form, or whatever it is, all other forms of government, there is no discussion. The ruler is taking a decision and it will be implemented. No one is allowed to question that decision. He is not discussing with the public or the people of that country. Only that is the decision of the ruler. But in democracy, decisions are taken after a prolonged discussion, and both ruling and opposition parties are participating in discussion, and the outside people are also, that is the public also joining, and the leaders are taking decision only after getting public opinion of the people. The third point is, democracy provides a method to deal with the differences and conflicts. Democracy provides a suitable method to deal with differences and conflicts. In our country, people belong to different religions, different castes, communities, using different languages. There are so many differences are there. That we studied earlier, unity in diversity. We are maintaining unity, and the feeling of nationalism, that we are following. Irrespective of all these differences, we are maintaining the feeling of nationalism. We are keeping in our mind all are Indians. All those feelings, all those things which are following or we are maintaining without any problem, because we are following democratic system. There is a chance, there is a way to discuss those issues, any issue related to anyone or any region. There is a provision for discussion and debate about that. If it is suitable or good for the people or the country or the region, government will take initiative for that. Because of that, there is no conflicts between people. If conflicts are there, that conflicts will be settled through discussion and debate. Then we are moving to the fourth point. There is a permanent winner, no permanent winner or loser. Then the next point is, it enhances the dignity of its citizens. As a citizen of India, we are getting the chance to select our leaders. This is possible only in a democratic setup. So that an ordinary citizen is he is a respectable person at the time of voting. Political leaders, political parties, all those people are approaching the citizens at the time of the election. That enhances the dignity of the citizens. Then lastly we are following the last point related to the merits of democracy. There is a chance to rectify its mistakes. No other system, there is no one to point out this is wrong. But in democracy, there is a provision to correct its own mistakes. How it is possible? All those decisions taken by an democratically elected government, democratic government, Their decisions are discussed in public, not only within the parliament, outside the parliament, the electronic media, those who are participating in channel discussions, all those people are discussing about the merits and demerits of that decision of the government. Finally, the government realizes there are certain defects in that bill. There is a possibility, there is a chance to correct those mistakes, to rectify those bills before passing it in the parliament. But no, that facility is not, that system is not there in any other forms of government. Only in democratic government there is a chance to rectify or correct its own mistake. They can correct their mistakes according to the public opinion. So the public is actively participating or watching what is the decision, what are the merits of that bill or that law, what are the demerits of that bill, and finally the public opinion will raise against or in favor. If it is against, that will affect the ruling party in the next coming election. So they will try to rectify that mistakes and to offer or to frame a law better and suitable to the common people according to the wishes or the opinion of the people or citizens of that country. Then we are moving to the next part, that is what are the demerits, drawbacks of democracy. 99% people are believing or they are saying that democracy is the best suitable form of government. But some of the points against that system, the first is leaders keep changing in a democracy. This leads to political instability. Take the case of India. That is, before 2014, two UPA governments ruled in our country, and Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister. And these two terms, that was a coalition government of so many political parties, more than two, that is, coalition means more than two, that is, so many political parties were joined that government. And what was the problem? Dr. Manmohan Singh was unable to take a decision, always required the approval of or to satisfy the demands of the regional political parties and others. Because of that, what happened? It is very difficult to take decisions. And that point is mentioned, there is political instability. If that decision was taken against any of the regional parties, they may threaten the government, we are going to withdraw support, and it will affect, that is, the government may fall. To avoid that, always the coalition system, the Prime Minister, the main ruling party followed a method of compromise. And we know that that compromise method that affected our administration. So many corruption cases were registered later. So that was the first demerit of democracy, that is political instability. But later after that, BJP came to power. Both the time there is no such political instability problem, because BJP got clear majority in these elections, or the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is enjoying clear majority in the parliament, in the Lok Sabha. So there is no one is trying to destabilize the government. So we got a politically stable government. The second point is democracy is all about political competition and power play. There is no scope for morality. This is the second point. So it is a competition. What is competition? Election. Election is a competition between political parties for what? To capture political power, to win the support of the people. That is competition. And second part mentioned, there is no scope for morality. So political parties are, their ultimate aim to win the election. They are following various methods to achieve the ultimate aim is victory. By adopting any method, sometimes they may threaten people, sometimes may use money, sometimes they use muscle power. Their ultimate aim is to win the election. So there is, we cannot say the elected person is really elected, sometimes with the use of money, sometimes by using force or threatening people, for muscle power and money, both are playing important role in the democratic elections. That is what mentioned as the second demerit of democracy. Then we have a third point. Elected leaders do not know the best interest of the people. It leads to bad decisions. That is what mentioned about always elected leaders always try to satisfy the needs and requirements of the people, or always concerned about the welfare of the people. That is what more important. That is, nowadays all leaders are maintaining good rapport or relation between the people or voters of his own constituency. Anything happened in his constituency, he is always readily available. There is available in his constituency. Otherwise, it will affect his political career. So, in a democratic election, sometimes the people, they are elected from their constituency. They don't have any touch with the people. They don't know what are the requirements and demands of the people. Because of that, our government earlier decided to introduce local panchayat system or panchayati raj system in our country for the overall development of the country. That political power transferred from parliament to the village local panchayat. So those who know about what are the requirements of the people in that locality, there is that is required for the proper development of the country. Here the third demerit is mentioned. Some of the decisions are not correct because they don't have any touch with the people of that constituency, or not touch with the people of that area. Then the fourth point is democracy leads to corruption. That is, always people are talking about corruption. Why? What is the reason? Because of that, at the time of election, money is required. Who is paying money? Not from his pocket. He spends money or collecting money for election fund from businessmen and rich people of the society, those who have enough money. Collecting money from those people and everyone, or those people, those who contributed, they are expecting something from some returns from those people when they are in power. So they are, sometimes those ministers and others are doing some favor to those people, those who donated money at the time of election campaign. It will lead, because those things will lead to corruption. That is what mentioned. There is continuous, regularly elections are there. Once in 5 years there is election. That election, money is required. They are collecting money from rich people and business people as election donation. For that, they have to take certain decisions always in favor of the people, those who donated money at the time of election. These are the four major points related to more arguments against democracy. Firstly mentioned, there is a chance of political instability. There is no scope for morality in the political competition or election. Sometimes the leaders are not familiar with, they don't know about the demands of the people. And finally, there is a possibility of corruption in democratic system, democratic election, and later after the formation of democratic government. These are the demerits of democracy. Finally, we are coming to the conclusion. What is the broader meaning of democracy? The broader meaning of democracy means what all required for a person to live satisfactorily or live comfortably in our country. Earlier mentioned about right to vote, that is the political equality that we established or we achieved. But nowadays, this political equality is not sufficient for following good democracy. By granting right to vote to all, that is only democracy. But what we required good democracy. For that, what is required? A new class of people with education, with proper health, with all other facilities. These are all required for each and every citizen. Our democratic system is, sometimes people are mentioning about it is not proper democracy because of there are possibilities to influence the people by the use of money. Or sometimes people, they are threatening them. So it is not true democracy. What is true democracy? We are able to take our own decision, or we are free to exercise our right without fear, without the influence of anyone. For that, what is required? We require education to distinguish what is correct, what is wrong, or which party is, what is good, what are the policies and programs they are following. They are able to study their election manifesto. Then only an voter can take a decision. So, an voter is able to take a correct decision. That correct decision, education is required. Secondly, is financially, economically in a better position. A person is always remain in poor financial condition. He is not free to take independent decision. He is always under the mercy of some other person. So those people are easily influenced by political parties and leaders. Sometimes they are forced by some of them to vote in favor to them. In such a situation, true democracy or good democracy is not possible. So for the good democracy, education is required, health facilities are required, economic condition is better economic condition is required. All those things are there. Then only we can say we are following a good democracy. Okay, thank you.